What's up, guys? Welcome to another edition of Before the Whistle, presented by BRK Insurance Group. If your business is looking for the best in employee benefits, commercial property and casualty insurance, or retirement and 401k plan services, there's no one better suited to meet your challenges and build a plan centered around your needs than BRK Insurance Group. What's happening, y'all? Happy Friday again. I'm your host, Maddie Hudak, coming back with my interviews that I've been doing these last couple of weeks on Fridays as Tulane gets back into spring ball. I'm recording this today. I was able to see another day of practice for Tulane and their spring ball, and just building off of some of my observations I had on Tuesday. We're going to have another practice on Saturday. I think that's really when we'll get to see what this team is made of, and that'll make next week's episode really exciting to be able to focus on what I've seen there. But I've been using these interviews as an opportunity to highlight some of the guys from this last year's team that are going to be participating in Tulane's Pro Day coming up again on March 26th, faster than I anticipated. That'll all be broadcast again. We will get those details out to you guys. But these last couple of weeks, I've had Jarius Monroe on. I've had Sincere Hainsworth on. It's just been a pleasure getting to know them as people and hear about their journeys once they've left Tulane. And these guys, I really feel, that I know them so well at this point. And so it's still that much more fascinating when I get to learn new things about them in this type of setting. And I learned a lot of new things about this guy today. Really looking forward to showing you guys this interview with cornerback Lance Robinson from Tulane. He was someone that has been on the team since I joined the sideline in that 2-10 year. And he was someone every day I walked into practice. And it's just those kind of small things, but he would run out of his way, come give me a fist bump, even if they were kind of, in the middle of something. But it was just, the acknowledgement of us being there all of the time and having just that mutual respect for one another, and that developing into a really good friendship. And it helps in those situations where during games when things are perhaps not going that well, and I know that guys can get emotional, that they're so used to my presence and we have just that, relationship and trust that they're still able to be themselves and not feel like I am kind of just towering over them in these meetings during games. And I've said this on several episodes. A lot of the time last year, I spent my time in the defensive back group. It's my favorite position. And it just, to me, when the going gets tough, the emotions rise and fall, I think, with the pulse of your secondary a lot of the time. And sometimes that's tough love, but sometimes that tough love needed to be past the secondary on to the entirety of the defense. And so again, it just kind of took me aback in the first game. You expect it from guys like Jarius Monroe and those more vocal leaders. And, Lance, he's not necessarily a quiet leader, but when you talk about someone that leads by example, including being that vocal guy on the sidelines, you just look at all of the critical moments in which he made interceptions, pass breakups this year, led the conference with those 4 interceptions on 3rd and 4th down when the team really needed that boost of energy. That's so important. It's one thing to make an interception when it's the first play of the game and the stakes are not there yet. It's a completely other different story when a game is tied at the end of the game. You can't get those stops on defense, and they're starting to kind of make these more credible drives down the field. There were several games this year where you thought this team really needs a turnover and bring out the beads, because here comes Lance Robinson again. And so to hear about his journey and how he really grew into his own with, those ball hawk skills that he's always had. But what about Tulane's defense really brought that out of him this year? His journey over from Kansas State to Tulane, a lot of the things that he took and learned over there, including how to deal with a head coaching change. And just speaking on what I continue to say is the heart of this show, but relationships with your fellow teammates, and how much that really does make a difference. Relationships with coaches that come from 7-on-7, from high school, from guys that you spoke to 4 years ago, to have that ability to remain and have that genuine connection and see these local guys really get to shine here in New Orleans. You guys are really going to enjoy this one. Lance is just such a smart player. He's so well-spoken and eloquent and mature about everything, but learn a lot about football and life when talking to him, and let's get right into it. Lance, you were someone, the guys have been talking to on the show. Ever since I started as a sideline reporter, it's been you guys since the 2-10 year, all through the Military Bowl, which you played in. And so just getting to see you guys really grow over those couple of years. But I wasn't there when you came over. And I know that you started out originally at Kansas State. So what was kind of your process in getting over to Tulane?
Yeah, I mean, my time at Kansas State was wonderful. I came out of high school in 2018. I played some games with the Bill Snyder. I was very, very, happy about that. He's 80. He was very old at the time. And then after my first year, he retired, and then I played 2 years under them, and then I came after COVID and the 2 and 10, and then like when I hopped in the portal, Coach Fritz was one of the first people to like reach out, and I remember when I was in high school and he did a home visit. And he was the only coach to come by himself. Like every other coach, like I had K State, South Carolina, and they came to the house, and it was like the DC and the head coach. But like with Fritz, it was just himself. Like he came by himself, and I had previous relationship with Coach JJ. I played with the Bootleggers in high school, so it's like that instant connection. Then like I knew Hamp because like when I was in high school, I would always come up there. I went to De La Salle. It's right down the road. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So when I was in high school, we played the first high school game in Tulane Stadium. It was De La Salle versus St. Aug my senior year. So like
That's awesome.
I've always been around Tulane. You know what I'm saying? So I just knew whenever I hopped in the portal, he was the first one to call me. I just felt like it was the right fit coming back home. I got my people to support me. And, I feel like, Tulane's in a good spot. And I feel like I was one of those guys to help it, kind of get to that point. So I'm very, very proud of that. And, with me being from New Orleans, it just makes it even much better. So, yeah.
Yeah, it really sticks out just over the last couple of years how many of you guys are from New Orleans and are really kind of able to find that home back here. And I think it also just speaks to the quality of the relationships formed with these guys out of high school and knowing that it's not just in the moment that if you don't end up signing with them, then you kind of lose that relationship. But having those
Yeah.
local ties, you talked about the bootleggers. Is that one of those kind of 7-on-7 type things? Or what was kind of that experience of getting to know Coach McCluskey?
Yeah, that was a 7-on-7 deal. And he was the offensive coordinator. Like,
Huh.
he ran the plays for the offense, but Ryan Clark, Ryan Clark,
Yeah.
he coached the defensive he coached defensive side. And so I was under him, and like I played with the bootleggers since I was a junior. I mean, I played with Jamar Chase, Terrence Marshall, Justin Rogers,
Jeez.
Puka Williams, Derek Stingley, Calvin Joseph. I mean, it can go on. Darius Davis for the Chargers here at TCU. Um, I mean, I played with all those guys, so it was, we all were just kind of locked in, and then me going to K State and then me coming back home, it was just Coach McCluskey was one of the first ones to call me with Coach Fritz. So good thing about New Orleans is just if you treat people good, they're gonna treat you back good as well. So building relationships and keeping those relationships, that's always big for sure.
Yeah, 100%. It's a great way to put it as well. You always hear that down here. And I mean, that is legitimate competition. That's really when you talk about stacking up against your peers and looking on to go to the next level to be able to have that competition level in high school. And were you always inclined to play secondary cornerback? I know some guys make switches over from wide receiver, but if it was always defense for you, what kind of was that draw?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely always defense. I played both ways, coming up in
Yeah.
high school when I first started, I was a receiver, and then for the JV team, like they didn't have a quarterback. So, I'm thinking, I go there play quarterback, I'm throwing around a little bit, and then our quarterback that we had now, throughout my whole high school career, like he came, I'm like, yeah, bro, you got it. And then so I played running back for our first JV game. I played running back the first half. I scored like a touchdown. They were short touchdowns. And then the second half, I had two big hits and an interception. Never saw offense ever again. I never saw offense ever again. So after that moment, I'm like, you know, I just play defense, and then I give, Coach, Jai Eugene, the Jai
Yeah.
Eugene Jr.
His
His,
son's on
his
the team.
yeah, his dad coached me like in high
Oh.
school, and like he played for LSU. He won a national
Mhm.
championship. He played with Patrick Peterson, Tyrann Matthew. So it's like I also give a lot of my credit to Coach Jai as well, because like I was playing both ways as a young athlete, and then when I finally got to high school, he like really molded me and got me right. So it's like I've always played defense, and I've always like loved defense. So it's like it was just natural, really.
Well, that's
I
interesting. Did
also
you play?
play,
Meaning,
football, basketball, and track too.
oh, you did. How long did you play basketball for, and what position? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, I was always one of the smaller ones, so I played point
Yeah.
guard. But I mean, I was playing basketball since like I was 6 years old. I have a ring. I have a ring up here from like I think it was 9 and 10, like a national ring. Like it's called like Biddy basketball here in
Mhm.
like Louisiana. It's like all the all stars, so it's like Biddy. And then I got a state ring in track for the 4x1. It was my sophomore year in high school. We raced at LSU, and I started the race off. I started it off, went around, and then we broke like a record for like the classification that we were in, and that was my sophomore year. So, I mean, I've always been kind of an athlete, you know what I'm saying? So, I had to take pride in that, really, most definitely.
Yeah, I mean, you could see the track speed that really sticks out. But I always am just curious about guys too that play other sports. And you talk about the first game that you played defense and breaking up these passes, all these interceptions. That's something that just always stuck out to me. You just seem to be such a cerebral player and have such great ball skills. I mean, you led the team in interceptions last year. You had 7 pass breakups on top of that. Has that always been a natural skill for you, or what really allows you to kind of become such a ball hawk?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. And I didn't start out playing corner. Like all through high school and even in college when I got to K State, I was playing safety and nickel. So like
Okay.
I always just kind of had that range of always can make plays, but I kind of dialed into being more of a field corner because we had J-Bo. You got the boundary, bro. That's all you. So it's like I have to fully lock in on being a field corner, but I also like pride my game after like certain people. Like I love Tyron Matthew. Like he one of the reasons why I was 7. I remember all through high school watching his highlights. Just trying to be like him. And shit, Tyron Matthew. He followed me on Twitter. Like he
Nice.
followed me on Twitter. He followed me on Twitter the after the Oklahoma game. After we went after Oklahoma game.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I had a pretty good game, and like he followed me after that game, and like that was crazy. You know what I'm saying? Like that was
Yeah.
that was just crazy. So it's like, I've always just tried to model my game to people who make plays. And Tyron Matthew, Marcus Peters, I mean, you could go Troy Palomalu, you know what I'm saying? Just a lot of just different players that I definitely Brian Dawkins, just like a lot of players that I model myself after, and I just try to go do it. But it's not all of my athletic ability like, a cerebral player. I mean, I do study a lot. And I mean, I hope that you see me walking around my notebook, like when we are doing stuff, like I always have my notebook, I always have my iPad, and I always have my jug of water. You know what I'm saying? So I definitely am fully locked into the game, and it also helps me make the plays that I do make. You know what I'm saying? So
No, 100%. I didn't realize too that you'd started off at safety and nickel. Just, when you talk about those skills like range and ball tracking ability, you really have to have those skills at safety. And so was the 2 and 10 year the first year that you made the switch over to cornerback, or was it when you kind of became that starter opposite Jaden Kennedy in the Cotton Bowl season?
it was in 2019
Okay.
after my true freshman year. Then we had a coaching change, and Coach Snyder he retired, and then we got the whole staff from North Dakota State. They were winning a lot of championships over there. They were doing great, and we got their whole staff. And I played a spring at nickel. Then they changed me to a full time corner, and then I spot played like 4 games at the end of the season of 2019, and then going into 2020, I was the full time starter at corner. And then I played the first 5 games. Then I got a close contact with one of my teammates, just being around him. So I had to sit out for 2 weeks. And then once I came back, it was a little like things were different. And so when
Wow.
I did come to Tulane, I mean, I told Larry this, and I'll tell you guys this. But like at first, they didn't know if Larry was going to be healthy enough. Like when I came to play, so like at first, it was going to be me and Macon at safety. And I'm like, whoa, like that'd be crazy, what he does, and like I know what I can do as well. And then like we both from New Orleans, that was my roommate, so it was like I feel like that'd be good. But then ultimately Larry got healthy, and then we needed some help at corner, and that's just where I fell. You know what I'm saying? But I definitely feel like I can play any position in the back end because I have done it before. You know, so
Yeah, it's really important, especially looking at guys that play in the secondary. I think it's one of those positions that you can switch more often than not if you're kind of open to it. And there's sometimes situations where a team might be looking at you as a potential safety, then their starting cornerback goes down, and all of a sudden you're able to play both of those roles. I just think that attitude is super important. And also just kind of learning to be a role player and then become a starter at the same time, because you a starter throughout that 2 and 10 year? I remember that you were battling injuries. Was that
yeah,
really during that
yeah, I was.
season?
Yeah, I was good, and then it's crazy because I caught it was the UAB game when I caught my first pick of my college career. It was after that, and then like when I came to the sideline, I think somebody like stepped on like the top of my foot, and so
Hmm.
like I had like two little bruised ligaments in my foot, and so like that's when I came back like week 9, week 10, and like I played against SMU a little bit, but I was still hurt, and then I played against USF, and that's when I kind of felt back to normal, you know. And then, but I mean, that's just what it goes through. I mean, it wasn't nothing crazy. It was just I really think caught that pick, came to the sideline, somebody really stepped on my foot. I tried to like get out of it, and when I got out of it, it's kind of messed my foot up. But even during the time when I was injured, you know, I was still making all of the visits, the travel visits. Like I was still trying to, be involved with the team because I do look at myself as one of the top guys. So it's like if I'm hurt and not being around, 2 and 10 could have went to 1-11. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So it's like, you know what I'm saying? So I just try to, still be involved and still trying to give, good spirits, stuff like that, even though it was definitely tough. Cause I've been a healthy player. I've never really had a big injury before. So it's like finally getting to my new spot, get my first interception and kind of getting a little injured, it wasn't the best of things, but it was all good and obviously it worked out for the better. So
Yeah, and I just kind of thinking still about what you said about COVID. I think everyone just kind of forgets about how many additional layers that added to the year, where you're not even talking about an
yeah,
injury, but just because of that, that's why a lot of guys play through injuries, is because they're afraid that the circumstances will change when they come back. But to have that
yeah,
be something so out of your control, and then such kind of a fluke incident on the sideline, where I've had injuries like that too, where it is nothing even related to the play, but things just kind
yeah,
of change when they come back. But you really, were that starter during the 2022 year. And, Jaden Kennedy goes halfway through the year. Jarius Monroe comes in at that point across from you. Was there any switching around at that point, just with him having that bigger size and just the kind of communication between you two, because it immediately clicked? And that's really
yeah,
easier said than done for a secondary halfway through a year.
yeah. I mean, when J-Bo came, Macon was his host and I'm Macon's roommate. So it's like one of the first persons that he saw was me and Macon. So it's like we automatically like sat down and was like, look, bro, we're gonna do this, and this. And it's like all three of us are good. You know what I'm saying? Like obviously Jaden is really good. He's at Ole Miss, getting back healthy, and he's gonna be just fine. But it's like at the end of the day, if we all do well, we all can eat. You know what I'm saying? Like we all can shine in our own different ways. So it's like when J Boy did come in those games that he wasn't starting, he made an immediate impact. Like an immediate impact. You knew when 11 was on the field. Like you knew that. So it was like him doing that and everything that we talked through in the beginning of the season on his visit, it was big. And then, unfortunately, losing one of our best players on the team, Jaden Kennedy, that was tough. And like, like you said, having to figure things out, like with me and Jaden, we both can kind of play field and boundary. It was
Right.
just fluent like that. And J-Bo, he's real confident. He can play to the field. Of course, he did it against Ole Miss, and he held up just fine because Ole Miss has a lot of tempo. So we couldn't get to field and boundary. But when J-Bo came, he was like, bro, I got the boundary. I said, bet, bro, I have the field. And like we just played it off like that. And like, he's a big communicator. So like, and I'm a big communicator as well, coming from a safety position. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've played in that role, so like, and at corner, your job is not to be the biggest communicator. Like that's just not your
Yeah.
role. You know what I'm saying? Like, make sure your guy does not catch the ball. That's your job. So it's like when two of your best guys are at the corner and the two of the best communicators, it just complements everything that we're doing. So it's like, with having him on the field makes things 10 times easier. You know what I'm saying? But he's a good player. I mean, I feel like I wish, I really wish that some of the guys that was on that Cotton Bowl team could have been in this defense that we were just in.
Yeah.
Because the Cotton Bowl with Coach Ham's defense, it worked, but we were a drop 8, 3-down lineman, assimilated pressure, bringing a dog or bringing a linebacker on the blitz. We never really blitzed 5, 6, or 7. But with Coach Woods, we're gonna send that pressure. You know what I'm saying? So I would
Yeah.
just have love. I would just have love to see how like a Nick or Dorian or Macon, a Lummy could just fly in this defense. So it's like, of course, we have the pieces like like you said, but like, I really feel like this defense complemented a lot of what we had at certain key positions. So it's like everything just goes, hand in hand with some of the good players. I mean, Cam, we got DJ back there, we had Slim, and then we got me and Bo with the most experience in the deep end, in the back end. So it's like I feel like it just all worked. I feel like all our personalities meshed well. We knew what we wanted. We all were older players. We all had like a lot of like snaps underneath our belt. So it's like I just feel like this season it just went not the outcome that a lot of our fans may have wanted, a lot of the people may have wanted, but I feel like there's a lot of things to be held up high. And obviously, like we talked about before, the podcast started, like Tulane's in a good position. So
No, exactly. I mean, you guys still 2 double-digit win seasons after going 2-10 that season, and really not again that much changing. Still having kind of a lot of key departures, but this is really the first year for me, at least, that I feel like it's a totally new slate where I am very used to again all of you guys. But that was really noticeable this year, just how kind of ferocious and attacking the defense was. And I know that you guys, did you play a little more kind of pattern match man style coverage this year, a little less zone? And how did that kind of go as a process for you guys throughout the year?
yeah, I mean, the way that we played defense the Cotton Bowl year, we played a lot of cover 3, drop 8, and that defense is fine. Like it's good. Like it worked to our advantage. I mean, obviously we won a lot of games, but this defense that we were in with Coach Woods, it allowed us to play a little more riskier, I would say, but in a good way because we have a great front. So our front is very good. So it's like we can take chances here and there, but I can say that we did play a lot of more match coverage. We play a lot of more man. We play a lot of more cover 4, cover 2, more split coverage. Where we got cover 4 to this side, cover 2 to one side. Like we got bracket coverages. And like this year, when we go to dime packages, like I would go to nickel. So it's like, the previous
Huh.
year would be Larry or, they would come down. But this year I would go in that nickel. So like I liked the, some stuff that we were doing there. But it definitely allowed us to play a little bit more like aggressive, I would say, just because of, what he was calling. I mean, you can't block all 6, 7 guys. Like that's just not impossible. So it's like I'm gonna play if it's a 7-man blitz, I'm not about to be bailing 20 yards out of there. I'm gonna plant my feet, play square. It has to come out. You know what I'm saying? So I like them both, and I made plays in both of the defenses, but I could say this defense has really allowed us to, take a little more risk and make a little more plays.
Yeah, I think that just helps you guys really grow your confidence. I know you kind of just, if you don't take risks, it's hard to really learn from mistakes. And that just kind of is the nature of the secondary. Sometimes you're going to get burned. Sometimes you're going to get flagged for something. But stuck out to me, especially with your play, was just the critical moments when it came down to it. Thinking back to the South Alabama game, there was kind of a stretch in that second half for that opener where there were suddenly kind of able to make a comeback. I actually remember you kind of grabbing all of the guys on defense together and just getting everyone's head straight and reminding you guys that you are a championship type team and it's time to start playing like it. And then, you had a fumble recovery early on in that game, but you had an interception in the fourth quarter when things are really getting tough. And just what do you kind of draw from in those moments and to be the leader both on and off the field?
Yeah, I mean, me personally, I definitely take pride in getting my teammates going. I definitely feel like I'm an energy guy. Like, before the game, I need to feel it. Like, I want to handshake every one of my teammates to really see if, like, if it's really there. Like, I need to feel that. So it's like in those critical moments, I know that everybody's looking at me. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's fine because like I feel like I perform well under pressure. You know what I mean? Like I've been in a lot of different moments. I've had 6 years in college. So it's like if I haven't seen every route combination, every, release, then something's wrong with me. So it's like, and I take pride in my film study. So it's like in those moments when guys have tendencies, you just gotta capitalize. And earlier in that game, they ran like it was. I had two receivers to the field, and number two was on the ball, and number one was off, and they ran like a little short motion, and he ran the smash concept with the out and in the corner. But they ran it earlier in the game to where it was like he just threw the out route. But in the fourth quarter, they were losing, but they ran the same little motion. So I'm like, okay, you're not about to throw this short one. I'm gonna just high low it and just and just pick this one off. But it's like in those moments, like even when I break down like my film, and I hope others do too, like I look at the totality of the game. Like yes, you may get burned on one thing early in the game, but can you see it, correct it, and make an in-game adjustment? And I feel like I can do those things because I have done those things. You know what I'm saying? So it's like in those moments, you just can't blink. You just gotta rely on your training, rely on every what you see, and go make a play. Like don't second guess it because the moment you second guess it, you're not gonna get the opportunity again. You know what I'm saying? So that's where I really just pride myself and really just stepping up when it truly matters. And I'm not perfect. I'm far from it. You know what I'm saying? But I do take pride in being that guy for the team that people can rely on for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it was just I was going through, last year and just looking at when your interceptions, when your pass breakups came. There was a third down interception against Ole Miss when we were still tied in the third quarter. You had a fourth down pass breakup in Memphis when we were in the fourth quarter, and two third down pass breakups versus Rice. It just always stuck out that the mental toughness when it mattered, and when you're, looking at guys and can they translate to the next level. I've done scouting curriculum on defensive backs, and having that mental toughness on third downs in away game situations, it's really one of the most important characteristics someone can have. And so just for you to be able to already trust your film study, and you're so right that you have to be able to trust what you see and go towards it and make those plays, even if you're kind of far away in space. There's a play I always will remember of yours against Kansas State, which I'm sure was a great experience for you. That open field tackle you made against Adrian Martinez on fourth down. I just remember you came out of absolutely nowhere, and your closing speed on that. Just again, when you're looking at these quarterbacks, do you really remember anything about that tackle that you were able to just make up so much ground and see exactly what he was trying to do?
Yeah, I mean that was obviously a big game for me. I had a lot of friends from there. It was a lot of love from my former teammates. Like it felt good being in that stadium, and as you know, it was rocking. It was definitely rocking. You know what I'm saying? So it was great just to be there. But I don't know. I just felt like because he was a running quarterback, and like what's crazy. I'm so far into it. Like the next week after us, like they had Oklahoma. So I knew for a fact they were not gonna open up the playbook. Like I just knew it for a fact. So it's like he's gonna run the ball majority of the time. Like they don't want to do too much. Like I know K State. Like I just know him. So I'm like, it's gonna be real simple. Boom, boom. And then like on just about every third or fourth down, he would run the ball. And it's like we said earlier, when we playing safety, like that closing speed is still there. I've ran down a lot of different people. So it's like just imagine me playing safety. I'm getting big hits at corner. I have closing speed at corner. Just imagine if I get a real anger at safety or nickel. So it's like, but I definitely knew, what like kind of like what they were gonna do just because like they had Oklahoma next week. That's one of their biggest games of the year every year. So like, I was just super dialed in and like I thought they were kind of I thought they were gonna underestimate us, and which they did. Was talking to some of my friends, like they were not ready for us to come out like that, and so it was, definitely a big game, and I had a fun one for sure, and I'm glad I got that win. That was a big one off my shoulders, and I could brag about that forever.
No, 100%. It's one of those games that I will always remember so vividly because you're right. The atmosphere was so rocking, and I just felt like you guys were thriving a lot off of that away
Yeah.
energy. And as a sideline reporter, I think that's the first game where I palpably felt a momentum switch just suck
Yes,
out of their stadium. And I'm telling Corey and Steve, I'm like, we're winning this game. Like there
for
is no
sure.
way because you guys
Right.
just had this confidence, and it didn't matter, like you said, that because you're right. ESPN was saying you guys were the tune-up game against Kansas State, and I think that's very sage to think that, and correctly
Yeah.
so, that the playbook is not going to open up that much. But you guys went out there, you played big boy football, and I think that really showed and set the tone for the rest of the season. Just knowing that you guys had that performance, especially on defense, in you.
Right, and I feel like that's the one that really kickstarted, that season because it's like K State is a very good team. Like they won the Big 12 that year, I believe. It was
They
like
were Big 12 champs.
so I'm like, if we can do this, obviously we got a little sidetracked against Southern Miss. That's fine. We take that, chalk it up. But like, if we can do this against K State, we can do this against anybody. So it's like, you know, and I also kind of go back to this year too. With some of the games that we played, the games I feel like the games that we really had to get up for and really had to like what kept us up at night, those are the games that we played our best. Obviously, with some of the new teams coming in, we didn't know how they were. We didn't know how, we never played
Yeah.
those type of teams for them. So it's like, okay, a 2-point win against Rice. Okay, everyone's worried. But then we go play UTSA and it looks totally different because they give us something to, like they really give us something to wake up about and think about every day. So it's like I take that back to the Cotton Bowl season, like every game was like that. You know what I'm saying? Because we really had something to prove. So that confidence and that swagger didn't come from nowhere. You know what I mean? So
No, without question. And I mean, even though this season didn't end the way that you guys obviously wanted it to, I just, it can't get lost in the shuffle that when you look at building a legacy and the fact that you went from 2-10 to 12-2, that even though you lost all of these big names, all of these big leaders on the team, you guys were able to repeat going to the conference championship second year in a row when Tulane had never played in that game before, let alone host it twice back to back. And you were one of the guys that could have made the decision to opt out of the military bowl, but what kind of was your thought process for finishing out that game with these guys?
yeah, I mean, it was definitely, after we lost, it was definitely tough because we played on that Saturday, I believe. It was on Saturday, right?
Hmm.
Saturday,
Yeah.
then Saturday, and then Sunday. I wake up and then Fritz is gone. So it's like for some of the teammates, it don't hurt as much because they don't know him as much. But like I told you before, he came to me in high school. You know what I'm saying, to the
Yeah.
crib by himself. So like, I really know him. You know what I'm saying? So it's like it was tough because I'm like, dang, I don't want to do it without him. Like he's the boss man. Like you know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Like I got nothing but respect and love for him. So I'm like, dang, just kind of seeing how everyone kind of just took their own paths, and I'm like, dang, I'm gonna just have Sincere right there by himself. Like he's the only captain. It's gonna be he. I'm like, I can't do that. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, it's gonna be me and him. We the only captains that would, have, 'cause everyone did what they had to do, and that's fine. Like no one's knocking no one for playing or not playing, because I was unsure, but I took a time to really think about it, and I'm like, dang, I can't have Sincere as the only captain out there. So I'm like, man, I'm gonna play. Like, and after that, after we played, win, lose, or draw, it didn't matter. I told my family, my friends, I'm glad I played. Like I'm glad I got that last one with the boys. That last one. Like I feel like, it was unfortunate how things went. But I feel like on different circumstances we would have got that dub very easily. So It's okay. Virginia Tech, y'all got that one. Y'all
No,
got that.
100%. And I remember I saw Lawrence Keys at that kind of bowl selection party, if you will, the next day after the championship game. It was somber, and he was one of those guys too, where he had played a big role in his decision to come back. Talking with Jaquan Jackson, people don't always realize from the outside how much, when we talk about these relationships with coaches, how quickly all of that in college football, it's suddenly over. And, it's just this really big emotional void, and it's just easier said than done. And, I think that, like you said, no one's knocking anyone for whichever decisions that they ended up making. But I think just kind of, even though it didn't end up going the way that you guys wanted to, what I've always said about you guys, especially the guys that have been there since that 2-10 season, is, to me, it's just as important to know how to win and also know how to lose. And when the going gets tough, where can you kind of draw within? And I just feel like you guys all exemplify that so well. And so, just to kind of, end things up, so you're looking kind of forward into the draft process, what have you kind of learned from those tough moments, and perhaps about yourself throughout these last couple years?
Um, for me, I could definitely say that I wouldn't say, I could say that comparison still is happiness. And that we're definitely in the comparison game, to where we have to compare 40s, we have to compare, broad jumps, we have to compare, whatever. But, for me, it's always about the film is out there. You know what I'm saying? And the proof is in the pudding. So it's like, with me, I see that everyone's path is different. Everyone's process is different, and how everything happens is different. So I can't compare, the next man's story to my story. Everything that I do is have to be on my own terms. And, you know, I feel like everything that I learned from being from K State, then the Tulane, I feel like it just molded me into a better person, the person that I am today. And I definitely feel that, the things that I've learned has definitely helped me. You know what I'm saying? So I could definitely say that through this process, I've been grateful. I've been blessed just to be in it. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of people not even in the position to even have an opportunity, a small opportunity to even get a yes or a no. So it's like, I'm just happy just to be here. And I feel like my work and what I've done will show. And I definitely can't wait till a pro day, because I'm going to turn some eyes, and all 32 teams will be there. And I just can't wait for everybody to, to show what they can do, because I definitely feel that Tulane is the top G5 school in the nation.
Yeah.
100%. So we got studs all over. And, I just feel like, Tulane is the one. So I'm definitely glad to be a Tulane alum.
Hey, me too. Roll wave. And I am looking forward to covering you one last time on Yeoman Stadium Field.
Yes, ma'am.
It's easy to hear a promo in the middle of a podcast and think, of course they like the product, they're paid to. Well, if you know me at all, then you know two things. One, I'm truthful, almost to a fault. And two, if I were in it for the money, I'd certainly be doing something else. So believe me when I say that I love Blue Oak Barbecue. The food, the drinks, the people, the location, yes, all of that. Blue Oak Barbecue has a great selection of your favorites, from the smoker, fantastic sides, and awesome bar specials each and every week. Go check them out. Blue Oak Barbecue, located at 900 North Carrollton here in New Orleans, or visit them online at blueoakbarbecue.com. I've been chaotically running through these specials as the weeks have gone on. And so I'm just going to go through next week's slate so you guys have that for you. Monday, as always, Trinity red beans and rice. And Tuesdays, they're pimientos rellenos, which is a brisket stuffed pepper. I'm going to keep botching. Wednesdays, you have a brisket Reuben. Thursdays is a barbecue baked potato. Friday, happy Friday, y'all. Go get a redfish roll. Saturday, you have a half jerk chicken. Sunday is a full English breakfast. And our awesome bar special of the week or so, you ask, the Shamrock Shake Daiquiri. Again, I am going to head over and try one of those very shortly this week. It has Patty's Irish Whiskey, Old Smoky Chocolate Chip Cream Moonshine, Lucky Charms Milk, and ice cream from my favorite mixologist, MJ. Go get yourself a Shamrock Shake at Blue Oak. All right, y'all. Again, that was cornerback Lance Robinson from Tulane University, a guy that I've had now the pleasure of covering for 3 seasons. And this has just been such a special experience for me to be able to really look back on these guys' career and get to know their stories in a way that, it's hard to really get the ins and outs of how every guy's journey to Tulane happened, for example. And so getting to learn that about Lance, knowing that he went to Kansas State and transferred over, but not really, knowing why necessarily, and talking about coaching changes and just how mature he was in speaking on all of that. And the fact that it is just kind of a part of college football, one that he watched go full circle, including, his decision to finish it out, be one of those remaining guys alongside Sincere Haynesworth in that Military Bowl, and just recognizing really the importance of these relationships with coaches, and that void that these guys feel when they move on, it really is real. But just thinking how many of these guys say that these relationships started back in high school, and all of these local guys, just that special ability to come back here, play, where your family is, where you grew up, to hear about the competition that he faced in high school, just all of that learning experience, but also not knowing how many places he had really played around the secondary. And it's certainly easier said than done to be that versatile. You have to have a little more athletic ability to play that cornerback role. You have to really have cerebral film study and that ability to make those open field tackles in space, coming down, stop runners as kind of that last line of defense. And, that are all things that get you onto a roster, spending time at nickelback. And I think back to Macon Clark kind of struggling when he made that transition over to nickelback from safety. I mean, it's not just apples to apples. And so for Lance to be able to play all of those different roles, come in at cornerback after that's not really how he started his corner or his college career, and have the guy opposite from him go down in Jaden Kennedy in the Cotton Bowl year. And so now all of a sudden you have to switch the way that you guys all play, because now he's primarily playing in space as that field corner, just based on Jarius Monroe's skill set. And just the maturity and the way that he really spoke about how, it's so team based, and that really is what matters at the end of the day, less so than those individual performances. It just speaks to the character and the quality of these guys coming out of Tulane. But he's someone that, when I think back to last year and all of those games where he was talking about, the new teams coming in, and for guys that really thrive on film study, it's hard when you have a new conference opponent. You don't have any real good film on them. There's so many, I think 50% of the coaches in the conference last year were first new head coaches. You look again at something like UAB, which was an early conference game. You have no film on a Trent Dilford led team because he was coaching high schoolers before this last season. And so that's easier said than done. Learning how to play new coverages at the same time as that, making that switch from that more zone-based, again, rush 3, drop 8 we saw in that Cotton Bowl year, and they were a lot more attacking this year. And, that just kind of changes the way that everyone plays, that their mentality is. But it also leads to, as we were talking about, sometimes aggressive plays lead to tougher margins of error, some plays getting blown out. But time and time again throughout the year, I went through some of these when we were talking on the phone, on this interview. But, it's not just that he led the conference in interceptions with 4 throughout the year and had 7 pass breakups. He also had a forced fumble and a fumble recovery throughout the year. It was the critical moments that continued to stick out to me. It was on 3rd down, on 4th down. When you look at the situation in the game, in away games, at the end of the 4th quarter, like I said, against Memphis, 1 on 3rd down against Ole Miss, when that game was tied in the 3rd quarter, it just always felt like when you needed, when the team needed that kind of that juice, that turnover, that burst of energy, Lance Robinson was there every single time. And he really set the tone with that forced fumble to open that game against South Alabama last season. And then that interception in the 4th quarter of that game. And I remember it was one of those games that it was tough for the secondary. It was a good quarterback they were facing in Carter Bradley, and a team that they were relatively unfamiliar with. You're playing a new style of defense. You have new guys at the safety roles, at the nickel role, at starting linebacker. No more Nick Anderson, Dorian Williams. And it just changes the way that everything goes down. And I remember Lance garnering everyone on the defense, and everyone, you could have heard a pin drop despite the atmosphere at Yeoman Stadium, even to the point where coaches sat back and just let Lance speak to his team and be that leader and then show that on the field at the same time. All of those qualities, you just couldn't ask for more out of a defensive back. And I really enjoyed this conversation with him. And I'm looking forward to seeing how he's able to show all of these teams, all those different things that he can do on Pro Day, which is coming super quickly up here on March 26th.